District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter, Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court, Paul C. Messer and James C. Mellon Jr. in Penfield Town Court. My name is Chris Chichester. In the criminal justice system, there's guilty and not guilty. I'm neither. I'm innocent. As I will explain for however long this YouTube lasts. This is the Freedom of Information Law. It has today's date on it, December 8th, 2022. This is attached in PDF. I'm going to read every one, which is what I always do. I don't know if you're watching me. Now, this is the return receipt. This will arrive at your offices tomorrow. Now, this says return receipt, hard copy, return receipt electronic. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. It's stamped December 8th. This says District Attorney Sandra Doorley, return receipt, hard copy, return receipt electronic. This says Alex Renzi, New York State Supreme Court, hard copy, electronic. This says Paul C. Metzler, hard copy, electronic. This says James C. Mellon Jr., hard copy, electronic. And the two individuals that have defended me, the Public Defender's Office. This is for you, Regina Harper, and this is for you, Mark Phillips. And Regina and Mark, I say this in a way that I hope you understand. And that if you never see me again, that's a good thing. But I believe that you will, even though I'm trying to go about my life as an innocent man, because I'll be arrested again by what I call Psychopaths Incorporated. They'll just concoct another crime for me because of what I'm doing right now and demanding information, because there is some anonymous, sick, disgusting hack at that district attorney's office who will watch me or read the documentation that they'll sign for the district attorney's office tomorrow and have previously signed for. That's going to conclude in an addled mind. How do we arrest him and present him in front of one judge to just declare him guilty? And I'll have to be defended again. So I'm going to read this information. Now, Todd Baxter, I've said this over and over and over to you, and there's not one response from you. There's not one syllable from you. Tell me how this is a crime, because this is not a crime. I come outside here. This is where I used to live, next to these trees at 26 Sanders Farm Drive. I stand right here next to this grass. I say nobody owns that land and walk back in my residence. How is that a crime? You bald-headed, skin-headed, party-switching stooge, cretin, cipher, and criminal. Because that's not a crime. I called Timothy Murphy of the Monroe County Office of Real Property Tax Service because Broccoli and lawn care was coming to my residence over and over, including at 7 o'clock in the morning. And for the first 5 years I lived at this residence, and they're not there. And this is how you decided to concoct a crime for me. Your $67,000 disgusting, repulsive Shannon Meyer contacted Steve Desmond of Broccoli and Lawn Care and said, get this Chris Chichester to come out of the residence, and if he does, we're going to arrest him. The problem, you skinhead, stooge, cipher, and criminal Todd Baxter, for me to walk outside, stand right here on this concrete, and say nobody owns that land and walk back on my residence, that's not a crime. You're going to have to state that's a crime, because you're not going to disavow or even fire $67,000 cop from House Shannon Meyer. Is she still employed? I've been on here relentlessly about this hack. And what I'm going to start to do, instead of just sending this documentation to you, I'm going to send it to your employees like Shannon Meyer, $79,000 Andrew Reale, $85,000 Don Benedetto, chases me up onto my back porch and lies and says I swung a hammer at him, for which I was indicted by Michelle Crowley, or $91,000 Lee LaRoque, who's in my residence with an illegal document to confiscate my Chromebook. And where's my Chromebook, Lee LaRoque? As I've said numerous times now, please tell me you don't know where it is. So anyway, this is parking lot here is what first brings me to the attention of Psychopaths Incorporated, the sheriff's office, and then Psychopaths Incorporated to the district attorney's office. And as you can see here, there's two of my neighbors walking through that parking lot. The accusatory instrument for me that states I'm committing a crime by walking through this parking lot. Well, there's two of my neighbors right here. How do you explain this to the United States Department of Justice? Have you called this repulsive hack, Shannon Meyer, into your office, Todd Baxter, and asked her simply, why don't you write a warrant for the arrest of this citizen walking through this parking lot? Chris Chichester, but not anybody else. I'm walking through this parking lot for the 4,000th time, either going to Wegmans or Gold's Gym or Camp Pizza, and Elliot Roth, who works at this business, is standing outside of you with this gruesome smile, quote, "You're going to be arrested," end quote. Because I had a confrontation with this Nayra Shah, 50-year-old man who lives with his 70-year-old mother, who lives next to this building, Consumer Insights. And he went to the sheriff's office about me walking through this parking lot, but not anybody else. So Todd Baxter, when I state the lunatic fringe, you're the lunatic fringe. There it is right there. I'm going to show it up to in the documents. That's a clear photograph right there. That's a camera. Todd Baxter, is this a camera you bought and fixed the 2025 Penfield Road, or is this private technology you're using and you will exist in stone cold silence, the stone cold silence of corruption? And when I call it a surveillance device, your fellow psychopaths are calling Renzi Bound in the Monroe County Office of Mental Health to come to my residence. Todd Baxter, is this private technology you use, the 2025 Penfield Road, or did you buy it and fix it for me? Elliot Roth, is this your private technology, or is the sheriff's office using it at your business, Consumer Insights, 2025 Penfield Road? Alienation is, according to Merriam-Webster, the state or experience of being isolated from a group or an activity to which one should belong or in which one should be involved. You, Todd Baxter, and Sandra Doorley are alienated from justice, decency, morality, and freedom. So I went to Patrick's Printing today, and I paid $58.86 for this Freedom of Information Law document right here that I'm going to read. Over and over and over, I've been to Patrick's Printing to print this out and send it to you. So I'm going to read that momentarily. And when Broccoli Tree and Lawn Care comes to my residence, nobody owns that land. If I repeat things, corruption requires repetition. When I called this Timothy Murphy at the Monroe County Office of Real Property Tax Service, I kept saying to him over and over, tell me if somebody owns this land next to where I live. Because Sheriff Todd Baxter's psychopaths are coming to my residence. That's the exact language I used to him. I'm saying to Timothy Murphy, tell me if Layla Kumar Shah, Nayra Shah, someone else owns this land. And he cannot confirm it because they don't have the documentation either. And he hung up on me. So Todd Baxter, one, it's not a crime for me to walk outside and say nobody owns that land. Even if there is ownership of this land, it's not a crime for me to just stand where I used to live and tell Steve Desert and Brock Tree and Look there nobody owns that land. That's not a crime. If there's ownership, there's not ownership of it. But there's not ownership because the individual in the Monroe County Office of Real Property Tax Service, Timothy Murphy, can't confirm it, and Layla Kumar and Nayra Shah don't have the documentation, which I've held up on here previously. And I hope to attach this ridiculous piece of paper he sent me. When I bought my house in the Albany, New York suburb of Guilderland, at the closing, I was given documentation with a seal on it that said that I own the land surrounding my house, which was on a cul-de-sac. They have nothing like this, Layla Kumar and Nayra Shah. The documentation that I once had in my hand to prove the land that I owned around my house in Guilderland, New York. It doesn't matter to you that it's not a crime to walk through that park and there's two of my neighbors. It doesn't matter to you that for me to walk outside and say nobody owns that land right there on that pavement, that's not a crime because you're a psychopath. And the validation that you're a psychopath is I'm telling you this is a surveillance device and you're refusing to tell me if you bought it and fixed it or if this is private technology. And when I go to Park Avenue, which is the address here, and open up that box, I'm not going to have nothing. Or if I do have documentation in there, you're going to be threatening me with an appearance in court, such as Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court, some other hack you want to get me in front of instead of $208,000 Alex Renzi. You're trying to figure out how to arrest me because you're psychopaths at that sheriff's office and district attorney's office. How many times have I demanded this information? What I'm going to read on this December 8th, I've sent you over and over. Every document I'm going to read, you received on November 3rd. You received on November 1st. You received on October 28th. You received on October 26th. You received on October 24th. You received on October 14th. You received on September 29th. You received on September 27th. You received on September 6th. And here's the UPS store here as I look for the date. October 30th UPS store. November 23rd UPS store. And you're going to get it again tomorrow. You're still going to refuse. I can't even find out the names of my prosecutors to silence. Here's again the UPS receipts. This is October 3rd UPS. This is October 17th UPS. And October 31st UPS. How do you possibly explain, you pathetic, repulsive diva from hell, Sandra Doorley, that you won't even disclose the names of my prosecutors assigned to my concocted charges and my court appearances? And is Julie Hahn my prosecutor before John P. Lomenzo Jr.? What's the answer in Jonestown? What flavor's the Kool-Aid for you, Sandra Doorley? The state or experience of being isolated from a group or an activity to which one should belong or in which one should be involved is alienation. You're alienated from everything that's good and decent in the United States of America. This pathetic little room with this bald-headed, skin-headed widow, Paul C. Metzler and James P. Melly Jr. Metzler's paid $28,000 and Mo's paid $34,000. I'm demanding a list of defendants, and this is what they sent me. I have not opened this because this is not a list of defendants. This should be 200, 300 names from what I'm demanding. This is not a list of defendants, Paul C. Metzler. This is not a list of defendants, James P. Melly Jr. When I contact the United States Department of Justice, the Office of Governor Kathy Hochul, United States Attorney for the Western District, Trinity Ross, the Office of Court Administration in Albany, I will tell them to tell you to send me a list of defendants in Penfield Town Court. I'm going to see going back 5 years. My friend Adam, who lived next to me in Penfield, had to appear in front of John P. Lomenzo Jr. I'm not going to talk about his details, but he's an innocent man too. He uses a word to describe John P. Lomenzo Jr. that I believe is the most disgusting, profane, four-letter word in English language that I'm not going to use here. That's the hatred that he has for this John P. Lomenzo Jr. And I have it too. You know why? I'm just being declared guilty for my two concocted charges of harassment second and criminal contempt. And I'm in Monroe County Jail. How was I charged with harassment second, Todd Baxter? Do you know? Because I've said over and over on this Google product that is YouTube and in writing, I go to a gym called PW Fitness. I'm on the bench press. Up walks to me Jermaine Bettman. He stands over me. I say, I'll be 30 seconds. He stands over me. He punches down. My head snaps back violently. $79,000 Andrew Reale arrives. He tells me to go out to the vehicle where I'm sitting in the back seat of his vehicle. Then he says to me, Jermaine Bettman, as I'm sitting in the back seat of Andrew Reale's police vehicle, I want to press charges against you. And with those 7 words, I'm charged with harassment second. Todd Baxter. Who did I harass? And I'm in Monroe County Jail for this. And then Andrew Reale, the same person who charges me with harassment second, well, I'm not only not harassing anyone, I've never harassed anybody in my life, is calling me on my iPhone, leaving messages telling me not to call Penfield Town Court where I'm demanding a list of defendants in a public proceeding. That's the lunatic fringe. So, $58 just for today. This is the most yet. $58. So I showed you the parking lot. I showed you the surveillance device. And this is my wallet. When I went to Penfield Public Library and I sat down, a psychopath with the last name Siemens and another Monroe County Sheriff Office employee followed me into Penfield Public Library, stood up at the terminal. Siemens ran at me, slammed his arm at the side of my head. I fell backwards. My head hit the ceramic tile of the library floor. And when I'm taken down to Penfield Town Court, my wallet is taken from me. Andrew Reale had to take me back to Monroe County Sheriff's Office, where they have, I believe, some kind of evidence room or processing room. Because when I got out of Monroe County Jail, my wallet was not returned for me. And what I did have inside my wallet was my ID from the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. So here I am out of Monroe County Jail, where not only was my wallet not returned, I don't have any identification. You can't even, Todd Baxter, you're such a buffoon and stooge. The reason why I'm telling you this is that when an inmate departs Monroe County Jail, you don't even have that inmate's property, which is me. So, Todd Baxter, I'm going to send you a Freedom of Information law for how you account for the property of an inmate. Because if you're doing this to me, you're doing this to other inmates. You're losing the property of other inmates. You're such a buffoon, a stooge, and skinhead. You can't even return property to an inmate when that inmate's being released, which is me. So, what's coming to you tomorrow? You know? You're going to refuse to comply with every single one on this December 8th, 2022. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. The internal disciplinary records or documentation for employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, that Sheriff Todd K. Baxter has reprimanded, terminated, disciplined in employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. I want to see a list of everybody you fired. And you refuse because you're corrupt, Todd Baxter. Because you're a mentally unstable person, which is a psychopath. Do you think that's unreasonable? I want to see a list. I demand to see a list of everybody you fired. Same thing with you, Sandra, only and you'll refuse. The internal disciplinary records documentation for employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra, that District Attorney Sandra has disciplined and reprimanded, terminated from employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. I want to see, demand to see a list of everybody you fired at the District Attorney's Office. Do you know why you refuse? Because according to Merriam-Webster, a psychopath is a mentally unstable person, which is you. You think I should be arrested because I demand to see and examine a list of everybody that's been terminated from the District Attorney's Office. And what's the process for the termination of those employees? Freedom of information law. Name, salary of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Do you hire employees directly to be one of your $100,000 cops? Because you can have someone in law enforcement that worked in a sheriff's office in Livingston County or Suffolk County, Nassau County, Long Island, where I'm from, or Albany County, where I worked for 10 years, and they could come from those sheriff's office to Monroe County. You can hire that person directly to be one of your $100,000 employees because they have that experience. And then that person's making more than a $75,000 employee, $65,000 employee. So what I just said, what I just stated, is that a policy at your sheriff's office? Do you hire an employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office from another sheriff's office to be a $100,000 employee? A list of freedom of information law. A list of every public employee at the, pardon me. This is a new freedom of information law. I thought I was going to read the fraud demanding payroll for the district attorney's office. A list of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office by one. Length of employment years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired, and you refuse. This takes work to compile this. Do you have sheriff office employees that you do not forcibly retire at the age of 62? Do you have employees that have been at the sheriff's office 25 years, 30 years, 35 years? The answer is yes. The last time I was at Monroe County Jail, I took the elevator down to what I believe is the basement area to run and work out. And there was an employee there. He had to be easily over 65, and he could perhaps be in the vicinity of 70. I believe you know who I'm talking about. Todd Baxter. So, this is the one I thought I was going to read next. Freedom of information law. The names, salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Send it to me. And this is a new freedom of information law I'm demanding. A list of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office by one. Length of employment years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. Do you hire an employee to be an assistant district attorney from Nassau County, Suffolk County, Albany County, Clinton County? And then that's one of your $100,000 assistant district attorneys making more money. That's an employee that's perhaps been there for 5 years to 10 years. What's the answer? Do you forcibly retire an assistant district attorney at 62 years of age, which is now the common age to retire? Do you have assistant district attorneys that are in there at 65 years of age or 70 years of age? What about your private investigators, Sandra Doorley? Your non-attorney Monroe County District Attorney Office employees. I'm going to demand that you separate the attorneys and what you pay them from the non-attorneys. And what do you pay your non-attorneys? You have six-figure non-attorneys. This is what I'm going to tell Thomas P. DiNapoli. Everything I'm saying to you, I know you're going to refuse, but I will request in the most respectful way that Thomas P. DiNapoli demand of you what I'm demanding. You're refusing because you're corrupt, because you're a psychopath, which is a mentally unstable person, because I got the law right here in my hands. And a psychopath, that's a mentally unstable person, like you, Sandra Doorley, will refuse to comply, just like with this. These next two, about what's commonly called overtime, I hope can enrage the citizens of Monroe County, especially when I go to the Democrat and Chronicle and other media saying you're refusing to disclose this information to me. Freedom of Information Law, the total cost of overtime or time and a half while paid beyond a base salary is calculated at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter. Has anybody told you, Todd Baxter, that someone is abusing overtime? Are you aware of it? Now, I'm demanding you answer me, but I believe that you know that you have employees that are working 50, 60, 70 hours and are possibly abusing overtime, and you're handling that internally. What's the answer, Todd Baxter? Are you aware? Has it been brought to your attention? For example, has $131,000 Corey Brown come to you and said that their employees are abusing overtime? And what's the process for it? Do you know why you paid Corey Brown $131,000? You want to get him as close as possible to what you make, because he's the old boy network. How long have you known Corey Brown? Is he paid $131,000 because you want to pay him the maximum amount of taxpayer dollars without exceeding your salary set in statute? Freedom of Information Law. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, while paid beyond a base salary is calculated at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, Sandra Doorley. As I said previously, there's real crime and violence and real trials, especially murder trials in Monroe County, and it's understandable if an assistant district attorney works a 41st hour and beyond. What's not understandable is a district attorney who refuses to disclose how that employee is paid. How do you pay your assistant district attorneys or private investigators if a 41st hour is worked? Do you have private investigators? I do not know. I'm guessing that you have some person, perhaps not called a private investigator, that acquires information because you need information. What's the answer? You refuse to answer because you're corrupt, because you're a psychopath, because you're a mentally unstable person. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter spending taxpayer dollars on employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I'm attempting to learn to force you to disclose if there's sexual harassment at the sheriff's office. What's sexual harassment? Is that a man asking a woman out on a date over and over and over? She's under siege with no. It's touching at the office where the employee says, keep your hands to yourself and leave me alone. It's disgraceful jokes and profane jokes, oftentimes laden in misogyny. Any number of specific behaviors that qualify as sexual harassment. Is there sexual harassment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Kathleen Miller, have you ever been sexually harassed? As you understand the term at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fail to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Have you, Sandra Doorley, ever been told by an employee, a subordinate of the District Attorney's Office, that there's sexual harassment going on? Have you confirmed that there's sexual harassment? Or is everything just sweetness and light, and there's no such behavior that's commonly called sexual harassment at the District Attorney's Office the entire time you've been District Attorney? Now, one time you've been made aware of what's commonly called sexual harassment at the District Attorney's Office. Is that your answer? Has sexual harassment been brought to your attention, Sandra Doorley, and you have terminated the employment of an employee? Has sexual harassment been brought to your attention, Sandra Doorley, and you investigated it and you retained the employee? What's the answer? Does the Queen have an answer? And how is the health of the Queen? I've written this only one time previously when I say that I'm constantly thinking of ways to demand information from you. Freedom of Information Law. What is the basic marksmanship requirement for employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd Baxter? It's a handgun. And what type of handgun do you use? And is there a test for marksmanship for your employees? And if an employee fails the marksmanship test, what do you do? Did you see the movie Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, the first one, where Danny Glover takes his weapon out and he wants to really impress Mel Gibson about how he can hit the target? And he does, and then Mel Gibson takes his weapon out and he fires. I think he unloads his whole gun and he hits the target the same way every time. There are guys that can do this. It's really incredible the way they can use that weapon. Well, I believe that you have employees that are brilliant with their weapons. And then you have your employees that are total buffoons and stooges, where that weapon should be confiscated from that employee because they do not know how to handle the weapon. And then, since they do not know how to handle the weapon, they're a danger not only to themselves, but innocent citizens in the city of Rochester and Monroe County. So, Todd Baxter, what is the basic marksmanship requirement for employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? You refuse to answer because you're a psychopath, which is a mentally unstable person. A mentally unstable person buys a surveillance device and affixes it to a building at 2025 Penfield Road, then lies about it repeatedly, which is you, Todd Baxter. There it is. Is that not a surveillance device? Todd Baxter, if that's not a surveillance device, then what do you call it? Elliot Roth, who works at that building. Did Psychopaths Incorporated buy it and fix it, or is that your private technology? Either way, it's lunatic fringe. Either you use a private technology to cock from them second for me, or you bought it and affixed it with taxpayer dollars. And what's the answer, you skinhead? Freedom of Information Law. The cost of surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and fixed to a building at 2025 Penfield Road to monitor Christopher Giles, 26 Sandra Drive, walks through the parking lot next to the building. There's two of my neighbors. Can you see that on my phone? I'm not sure sometimes if I hold up my phone, if you can see a photograph given the glare and the lights in this loft I'm in now. Those are two of my neighbors. That's a different picture. And nobody owns that land there, Todd, baby, because Timothy Murphy, the Monroe County Officer of Property Tax Service, says nobody owns that land. So when I go outside and tell Steve Desmond of Broccolo Tree and Lawn Care, nobody owns that land. Guess what? Nobody owns that land. And even if that land does have ownership, that's still not a crime for you to walk outside, stand right here and say nobody owns that land. Your employees given all the training for a sheriff office employee do not understand what constitutes a crime. $79,000 Andrew Reale doesn't understand it. $67,000 Shannon Meyer doesn't understand it. And $85,000 Don Benedetto, who walked onto the private property of my 72-year-old neighbor and hid right next to a bedroom window, certainly doesn't understand it. When he chases me up onto my back porch with another psychopath with the last name Houlihan, and then I grab a hammer next to my porch. I never stop running. Houlihan grabs my arm. The hammer goes up. I run through the sliding glass door. This is on his body camera footage. And I'm charged with attempted felony assault, for which I was in Livingston County Jail for 6 weeks. And then Alex Renzi tells me there's no such thing as attempted felony assault. And then Michelle Crowley, when she convened the grand jury to indict me for this concoction, doesn't call me. And Houlihan perjured himself to the grand jury, Michelle Crowley, when he said I swung a hammer at him. Did you see the body camera footage that I saw, Michelle Crowley? I'm going to write this down. This is what I have not, when I previously contacted you, I did not ask you that question. And does that body camera footage still exist? I have the links that Regina Harper, the public defender's office, sent me. I don't know how active these links can be. Do you even know what I'm talking about, Michelle Crowley? Do you know what I am, Michelle Crowley, in Monroe County, New York? I'm your personal ham sandwich. Do you know what I'm talking about? You can indict a ham sandwich. It's one of the most famous phrases in the American legal system. It's used so often because it is so easy to indict a citizen. Michelle Crowley, why didn't you call me to your grand jury to testify? And how many grand jurors were there? My understanding of the grand jury is 18 to 24. How do you select your grand jurors? Was there a vote? Am I indicted by a unanimous vote? Or if there are hypothetically 24 grand jurors, does it take a majority vote to indict me? Does it have to be 13 to 11 to indict me? I don't know, but you do, and tell me. And you will refuse to answer, Michelle Crowley, because you're corrupt. I'm going to write all this down, and you will receive this transcript too. I'll write it down in a coherent way, 1,000 words, 1,500 words, 2,000 words, everything I'm saying. Michelle Crowley. 1, why didn't you call me to the grand jury? 2, how many grand jurors are there on the grand jury that indicted me? 3, what was the vote of the grand jury? 4, does it require a majority to indict me? Freedom of Information Law. The cost taxpayers for Todd recession approved by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter for of 10 Monroe County Sheriff Office employees underwater in a pool. I don't care if it's a private event. I didn't ask you that. I wrote this Freedom of Information Law. What I'm saying right here, the cost to taxpayers, and your response to me is it's a private event. This is where you exist in that 1984 of corruption and where you're a mentally unstable person. When I say to you, what was the cost of this? And your response to me is it's a private event. This is why you're a psychopath, which is a mentally unstable person. I don't care if it's a private event. Is this tax dollars? Freedom of Information Law. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher attended the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. Here he is in Atlanta with his dog. I've showed this over and over. We're tweeting about it. This is the tweet. As we get ready to watch the Super Bowl, we are grateful to the men and women assigned to keep fans and players safe in Atlanta, including MCSOs on Deputy Ryan Fisher and K9 Lola. Deputy Fisher sent this photo from Atlanta. Thank you both for your service. This is not service. This is junket. He's going up to a citizen on the streets of Atlanta saying, take my picture. Here he is with his dog. There's a story. That story was on Spectrum News. Here he is in Atlanta where there's stars and bars here. This hate symbol was not changed until 2003. And he's out of the state of New York. This is the beautiful flag of New York, which couldn't be any more different than the hate symbol of the state of Georgia. It's Excelsior here, which means ever higher. E pluribus unum, out of many one. This here is a pole here with a cap on it. That is a Liberty cap. I love this flag. This is the Hudson River. It's supposed to signify a new world. And right here, it's a blindfold on Lady Liberty, which means justice is blind. It's justice blind for me, Sandra, Doorley, and Todd Baxter. Your $0 employee is Michael Rabbitt paid private money. He's been employed since January 2018, your first day in office. Day and year, Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter rehired Michael Rather after his 20-year career ended on January 2018 and send to the email or address listed below the documentation signed by Sheriff Baxter to rehire Michael Rather. For you to take him out of retirement, this paperwork. So send it to me, and you refuse. And since you refuse, this is why you're a psychopath, which is a mentally unstable person. You're overweight, Todd Baxter, lose weight. Freedom of Information Law. What are the physical training standards and requirements at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? And if there's a standard or requirement, does it include running, push-ups, and sit-ups? Does this need further clarification for you? Tell me the answer. You are placing the lives of your own Monroe County Sheriff Office employees at risk because you don't demand any type of physical fitness from each. When I was at Monroe County Jail the last time, where I could hear the fights above me, I mean, there were guys, they would slam down on the floor, and then I would hear the punches, and I'd hear the screaming, yelling. That's how I knew there would be a fight. There would be a female employee that would walk above me. I'd be in my cell, and I'd look up at her, 40 pounds overweight. Who's at your jail? The name in charge of every inmate at Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's Monroe County Jail from January 2018 to December 6, 2022, even though this is dated December 8th. Give me these names, Sandra Doorley. It's this Julie Hahn, who's now on Monroe County Court. Total silence in front of John P. Lomenzo Jr. as I'm delivered to jail. I looked over at her when I went to Penn Court. I'm staring at her. My head's to the left. And I'm thinking the minute she starts to talk and accuse me of a crime, I'll interrupt her. Stone cold silence. What's this employee's name from your district attorney's office? There are at least 3 names, and I believe there are more. And you're going to refuse to comply with these next 3 and disclose the names of my prosecutor's silence because you're a psychopath, Sandra Doorley, which is a mentally unstable person. Documentation for the case for Christopher Charles Hester with John P. Lorenzo Jr. in Penn Court. What does the name of the prosecutor say, Doorley? Documentation for the case for Christopher Charles Hester with Paul C. Metzer in Penn Court. What does the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? This is the 5'2" 3-piece suit boy. As I've said over and over, I use the same language that Regina Harper said to me, quote, the prosecutor's not backing down. He doesn't know anything about me. Do your prosecutors call citizens of Monroe County accused of crimes? And you think that's unethical? Because it's not. He could have called me and interviewed me. I would have came to 47 South Fitzhugh and met with him or the previous prosecutor, who I believe is Julian Hall, but I don't know, or my prosecutors I'm going to get to in front of Alex Renzi. Do you interview defendants to see their side of the story? Or do you just rely on a piece of paper concocted by the sheriff's office to be presented in front of your assistant district attorneys, and then they're just going to go with that lie and that fiction? What's the answer, Sandra Doorley? Every single one of these prosecutors should be disbarred. And that's the next step for me. I'm demanding these names because I will seek to disbar each with the appellate division of state Supreme Court, including your disbarment. Sandra Doorley. The documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester in New York State Supreme Court for Alex Renzi. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? In my last appearance, he said to me, "You're finished and done." I'm not finished and done. Because when I come here, and when you sign for this documentation tomorrow, as you signed for it previously, you're thinking about how do we get him in handcuffs, and how do we get him in front of one corrupt judge where there's not a jury of 12, there's not even a table for a witness to testify against me, and I've committed a crime. There's certainly no table for a defense attorney defendant, no table for a prosecutor. Get me in front of one corrupt judge at some type of Soviet Union show trial to declare me guilty and to deliver me to jail where I'm not told how long I'm going to be in jail. So am I finished and done? The answer is no. Right? This is why you're a psychopath, Sandra Doorley, and why you employ psychopaths. This is why you're a psychopath, Todd Baxter, and why you employ psychopaths. Because I come here and I'm demanding information using the legally binding document for it. And you want to arrest me again. I'm going to say this again. The documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester in New York State Supreme Court, Alex Renzi, what is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? He's paid $208,000 to just deliver me to jail when he knows the prosecutor's not talking in court. And I'm going to seek his disbarment too. I'm going to get to what I'm demanding from him. A list of defendants, Penfield Court for Paul C. Metzer. Everybody's guilty, Paul C. Metzer. That's why I refused to send me a list of defendants. And this is not a list of defendants. This is you telling me, Paul C. Metzler and James Mellon Jr., to go have sex with myself when I'm demanding a list of defendants in Penfield Court. A list of defendants, Penfield Court for James Mellon Jr. This will include Jermaine Bettman, his violent criminal, and Doug that you released. List of defendants, Penfield Court for John P. Lomenzo Jr. This will include Daniel Glaus III, accused child rapist, that Lomenzo releases even though he has a relationship with the family. This is the corruption of this little disgusting sick room. Where this defendant, Daniel Glaus III, and there's a Democratic Chronicle story, I believe you know his name immediately, at the district attorney's office, the sheriff's office, where he doesn't recuse himself from the appearance of Daniel Glaus III, even though he knows the family. And he just declares me guilty like all my judges. All I have to do is show up to be guilty. I just have to show my face that I'm guilty when I'm an innocent man. A list of defendants in the New York State Supreme Court for Alex Renzi and his $208,000 salary. He will refuse. That's why he's corrupt. Junkets and raised taxpayers. Are you sending your employees out of Monroe County, out of New York State? I already know the answer is yes. So how many times have you done it? The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Dr. Baxter. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Did you go to that District Attorneys Association in the state of New York summer conference in Saratoga Springs, Sandra Doorley? Because I didn't see your name on the official website, and I didn't see you in any photographs. But you could send one of your employees to it. What's the answer? The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Penfield Court, Paul C. Metzer, James Mellon Jr., and John P. Lomenzo Jr. This is you in Watkins Glen, Todd Baxter, in a race car. What are you doing in a race car in Watkins Glen? I'd like to know if your employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office saw that picture and they think, what's the boss doing sitting in a race car? The corruption of you and your alienation from how you should do your job in a most ethical and honest way is at a point where I believe that the United States Department of Justice and its employees could possibly conclude we've never seen a sheriff behave like this, such as being in a race car. And I'm demanding information from you about how you arrived at being in that race car at Watson's Glen, and you're refusing. So this is the information I'm demanding, that you refuse to comply because you're a mentally unstable person, which is a psychopath. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of the trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Did the Monroe County Sheriff's Office expend taxpayer dollars for 1, a hotel, 2, gas and miles, 3, a per diem? Freedom of Information Law. The total number of employees that escorted Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to his trip to Watkins Glen, New York. So when you went to Watkins Glen, I'm going to tell you what happened. You decided how many of your groupies, your Kool-Aid drinkers, and yes men you want to escort you to Watkins Glen, because you're certainly not going to drive there by yourself. How many of your employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office accompanied you to Watkins Glen? Freedom of Information Law. The cost taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley attended in Saratoga Springs, New York, the District Attorneys Association of the State of New York Summer Conference. Did you go or not go? And if you attended, you didn't go by yourself, just like Todd Baxter, because you need your groupies and your Kool-Aid drinkers and your yes men, your yes women to go with you. This is the Undersheriff's Training Conference in Saratoga Springs. Undersheriff is Corey Brown. I believe you have more than one undersheriff, but I don't know. But Corey Brown is your $131,000 undersheriff. Was he in Saratoga Springs? Yes or no? You refuse to answer because you're a mentally unstable person who is a psychopath. The cost of taxpayers to Saratoga Springs, New York, if Sheriff Todd K. Baxter approved the expenditure of tax dollars to attend the Undersheriff Training Conference at the Gideon Putnam Hotel in Saratoga Springs, New York. Gangsters used to love to go to Saratoga. And you, Todd Baxter, being in Saratoga, and your employees being in Saratoga are gangsters in Saratoga. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County by New York State Supreme Court Judge Alex Renzi. And attached here that you're going to sign for is, these are all your names here. And I sent this to you on November 28, 2022 at 5:38 p.m., where I used my Proton Mail account, chris.chai607 at Proton Mail. These are all the names. Everything I just read, I think about 85%, I should say, because I added some new ones. November 28th, and I wrote here, November 20th, comply with the attached PDF Freedom of Information Law document dated November 28, 2022, and mail the information I demand to the address listed in United Parcel Service, Corruptible Delusion and Dial 0. And there's my UPS. So on this Freedom of Information Law, which is attached, on this December 8, 2022, there's my email address, cchester4@gmail. Contact me in my Gmail and tell me how you want to draw and quarter me, you want to flog me, you want to do something like that to me. 620 Park Avenue, PNB number 361, Rochester, New York, 14604, my phone number. Call me on my phone and threaten me. Tell me how you want to get me in front of one corrupt judge, declare me guilty where a prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court. Okay, Sandra, sweetheart, please do that. 813-648-4441. You got it. It's coming. So, over and over and over, I'm demanding this, and your alienation will prevent you from disclosing this information for me. Alienation is the state or experience of being isolated from a group or an activity to which one should belong or in which one should be involved. And you're alienated from justice, decency, morality, and freedom. So, are you confused by anything I've said here? Anything I'm demanding? Because I'm not asking. I'm telling you to send me this information. My 50th birthday is July 4, 2015. We have 2 speeding tickets. One in Washington, D.C., and I went to court in D.C., and it was dismissed. One in Albany, New York. I went to court right in front of the Capitol, and it was dismissed. What I now know about these corrupt judges and these disgusting star chambers in Monroe County, it does not matter how a citizen lives a life when it's a first court appearance. And what it also has now been affirmed for me, which I did not know, despite my employment in Albany for the majority of being governor, is that a defendant can be delivered to jail when a prosecutor doesn't talk. And that's happened to me 6 times Because the Psychopaths Incorporated, that are you, Sandra Doorley, you, Todd Baxter, you, Paul C. Metzler, you, James Pinelli Jr., and you, Alex Renzi. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man.